This video is going to show you how to install Windows on a Macintosh. The first step in doing so is to back up your hard drive just in case the installation goes wrong. Just plug your external hard drive in. If you don't have an external hard drive, you can feel free to use a CD as long as it doesn't take up the space, like if it doesn't take up too much space. Even though you're installing to a separate partition of the hard drive, the installation might fail, so you should back up your hard drive anyways, just in case the installation fails and you can't reboot back into the Mac side. From now on, if you have another computer, you can use it to list the steps, or you can write them down if you don't, because the computer is going to restart into the setup. So you should write down the steps. Before we move on, I just want to say one thing. I think you have to be running like Snow Leopard or later, or Leopard or later. It might be Mac OS 9.2 or later. If you don't, you got to download and install a third-party partitioning software. So now what you need to do is open Finder, go to any folder, and search Boot Camp Assistant, and then click on This Mac. The application icon is right here. Now on my Macintosh, I already have Windows installed, so all the future things are just going to be pictures. Now I'm going to assume throughout this tutorial that you're going to install Windows 7, since it's the most current version of Windows as of January 27th, 2012, the date this video was made. This is because that during the installation process, the installation setup might be different on an earlier version of Windows, so you're going to have to follow the instructions on that screen, but I'm going to guide you through the Windows 7 installation. When you get to the Boot Camp window, it's going to warn you that you have to back up your files before the installation process, just in case the installation fails, so just hit continue. Now it's also going to warn you that you should plug in your MagSafe cord if you're using a MacBook or a MacBook Pro. This is because that the installation may take several hours or maybe a day, so you should not run out of battery while the installation is in progress, otherwise the installation will cancel. If you're installing Windows 7, check the Install Windows 7 checkbox and check the Install Windows Support checkbox. When it asks you that if you want to save the support files to an external hard drive or a CD, you can choose either one. I don't recommend either one, but so I'm letting you decide. If you say external hard drive, plug it in. If you say CD, insert it. It'll download a Boot Camp setup file. You can leave it there until later on. I think when it's done downloading, you can eject the CD or unplug the disk, and then you can click Next. One last thing before we install is to set the partition size. Just drag the button in the center to match the partition size you want. Once that's done, insert your Windows 7 installation disk, not your Windows 7 support disk. That's only for like the drivers and stuff. So insert that. And then press the continue button to start the installation. The computer will then restart into the Windows setup. Check to make sure the system matches your language, and then check to make sure if it matches your time and currency, and then your keyboard type. And then click Next, and then click Install Now. And then agree to the EULA. You're not upgrading, you're just installing on a separate partition, so choose Custom Advanced. And now, you should unplug any removable disks. The only problem is when you click on the Boot Camp partition, it will say that you can't install Windows, which means that the drive has not been formatted yet. So click on Drive Options Advanced, and then click on Format. If it displays a warning box, just click OK, and just let it format, and then click Next. After maybe a few hours, or maybe a day, it will display this message box, which prompts you to entering your username and your computer name. Then it will ask you if you want a password for your user account. I recommend you enter one, but it requires you to enter a hint, which you can remove later. It's going to ask you if you want to go online to get any automatic updates. Just choose Ask Me Later, because it's going to freeze after a day of usage. And we have that CD with that Boot Camp setup file, which will be like enough to install the updates and stuff. And then just click Next. Next, it'll ask you about the current date and time. So just choose your correct time zone, and then click Next. Then it's going to finalize your settings. After that, I think all you have to do is type in your password, and then you'll be at the desktop. The screen resolution is going to be low, so that means we need to install a graphics driver. If you go into Device Manager, then you'll see the yellow triangles with the exclamation points in them next to each driver. That means they have issues or the driver doesn't exist. And there's also no internet connection, so we have to install an Ethernet driver too. And then what we just have to do is insert that disk with the Windows support stuff on it. All we have to do is we basically have to just insert that Windows 7 support disk and then run the Boot Camp installer. This will install the drivers that will be needed for the Mac to successfully run. The Windows operating system will then recognize that it is running on a Macintosh. Finally, if there's some settings that you would like to apply on the Windows side that are also on the Macintosh side, like say the trackpad and the keyboard stuff, then there's a control panel item called the Boot Camp Control Panel. When you run it, it will provide you with all these options, which are also available on the Mac side, but they only apply to one operating system. Now, if you want to reboot between operating systems, all you have to do is either change the startup disk option in the Boot Camp control panel, or simply hold down the Alt key while you're rebooting to choose the operating system.